Hello, I'm James,
Hi, I'm Jimmy,
and welcome to A Job Done Well.
the podcast that helps you improve your performance and enjoyment at work.
Good afternoon, how are you doing?
I'm all right, James. How are you doing?
I'm fabulous, thank you very much. Delighted we've got Amanda with us again today.
Hi, nice to be with you.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
Amanda has joined us because today we are going to be talking about collaboration. Everyone wants it. How do you achieve it, and how do you get the benefits of it? Is it a corporate fad, or can it really add value? We will share with you how you ensure it adds value. Well, Amanda will share with you how it adds value. James and I will pepper in.
Because it's fairly clear from this podcast we're not great at collaboration.
Or adding value.
Yeah.
Anyhow, what have you been up to recently, James?
Well, very exciting week this week. Mrs Lawther's 57th birthday.
What treats have you got in store?
I've got all sorts of treats, but I'm resisting the urge to write in her card, "Welcome to your late 50s." I don't think it's going to go well for me.
No, but you would have done better than the hose pipe at Christmas.
And hose pipe went down all right. Believe it or not. Yeah, you didn't want bought. It could be a disaster.
Well, I know she's a lucky lady, James.
Yeah,
I'm sure she'll be
absolutely she is.
overjoyed with whatever it is.
Yeah, but for the next 6 weeks, she's going to be a full year older than me, so I'm not going to be merciless. Late
Enjoy it
50s
when you
will
can.
come.
Amanda,
How about
what have you been up to since last saw you?
Since we last got together, well, really exciting news in our family that my nephew, who I can hardly believe is old enough to do what I'm about to say, is buying his first house. So I'm not sure who's more excited, to be honest with you, about
wow.
the fact that, he's branching out. He's been really good, saved a deposit, and now he's finally into the kind of grown-up world of buying a house. I'm helping him to think about how to go through that process. It's a long time since I did it. And I think I'm helping his mum come to terms with the fact that he's going to be leaving home as well. It's going to be a shock to the system for sure when you get together and think about all the things you've got to pay for.
Well, one of my favourite videos is those ones that parents do of going to visit their children's homes, and they leave the door open and leave food everywhere and make a mess and pull the toilet roll out and that sort of stuff. You'd have to find a couple of those videos, Amanda, and share with him. This is what I'm going to do when I come round and visit you.
That's hilarious. I'd not come across that one before. I hear a lot from my friends whose kids have grown up and moved, and say now that their homes are immaculate compared to the very untidy bedrooms that they used to occupy in parents' home. That's for sure.
How about you? What have you been up to?
Well, I've been enjoying my latest box set. For those of you who haven't seen, Unforgotten, all of the series on ITV. It's worth watching. So that's what I've been up to, watching box sets. Anyhow, one thing we should mention, we were going through recently our podcast stats, and we did notice our geographical reach of our podcast. We are global now, Amanda. Did you know that?
Wow. I did not know that, but actually,
Listen to.
maybe I did, because a couple of people that I've recommended you to actually are based in the US. So I'm hoping if they're listening, that's showing up in your numbers.
Well,
When you say global, what you mean, like north of Mansfield? Is that what you're saying?
No, we are listened to in 62 different countries.
Wow. Congratulations.
And we should thank our global listeners. Please feel free to share it within your countries.
So what's our topic du jour then?
So our topic du jour is collaboration, and we have Amanda, the queen of collaboration, to demystify the topic, but also share some thoughts and insights about how you can actually add value, because, collaboration can be a bit of a mixed blessing, can't it?
Yeah, it sure can. I definitely think from my experience of actually helping teams come together to collaborate, because there's a big part of the work that I do, that it's something that's worth investing in. Just naturally assuming that by pulling a group of people together and then expecting them to work magic is probably wishful at best, but you can increase or accelerate your ability to be able to collaborate well and avoid some of the pitfalls for sure.
So why are we talking about collaboration then?
Why wouldn't we talk about collaboration, I think, is a better question. Because if you are running an organization is all about collaboration. So as I like to do, I had to look in the dictionary. What does collaboration mean? So that needs to come to my state of the bleeding obvious, which is 2 or more people or entities or organizations working together to achieve a task or goal. So unless you are a one-man window cleaner working in business, then frankly, it's all about collaboration, isn't it?
I had a dictionary definition as well, James, and I think this just sums us up. My dictionary definition was a partnership, a union, the act of producing or making something together. Yours is much more practical, mine's much more fluffy.
Well, mine was the joint effort of several individuals or groups of people working together to complete a job or achieve a common goal. So I think we're probably all in similar territory.
We are, but I think if you take a step back, whilst your point is a good one, James, why wouldn't you? Because at work, generally, you are trying to create something, produce something, get an output. And in order to do that, you almost certainly need to work with others in order to achieve that at some point. However, of playing devil's advocate slightly, collaboration has got a little bit of a life of its own over the last few years, where people talk about it. It's become a bit of another management buzzword, and it's all, or let's talk about collaboration. Everyone nowadays wants to do a collab with all the famous people. They all want to do this with this one, with that one. So it's really a trendy thing. But does that really mean that it's that important?
Well, yeah, but having worked for 30 odd years, I can't think of a single day where I haven't been collaborating with somebody.
Well, it's interesting.
So it's just endemic in the organisation, is it not? Sorry, Amanda.
Yeah, no. And it's interesting because I read a definition that it hadn't occurred to me before, but let me share it with you and see what you think. In this definition, it made the distinction between cooperation and collaboration.
Okay.
So cooperation being, this is your project. James, you need to deliver, and actually you want to deliver your goal, in which case we cooperate. Versus in this definition, the distinction was collaboration is actually where we truly share a goal and we're coming together to deliver on that shared goal. I thought that was interesting because I wonder if at work what we're more used to is cooperation. So I'm running my business operation. I need you to come in and help me to deliver my objective by creating a great, analytics platform for that, or so on and so forth. Does that resonate with you?
I think it does. To draw that distinction is the interesting one because, if I was running an operational area, I would want cooperation from James and his teams to help me. That's different from James and I collaborating to achieve something that is a joint goal. So I can see the distinction. But to James has been in 30 years of working, collaboration happened all the time. But I think when organisations get on the collaboration bandwagon, I think there are often as many negatives coming out of it as there are positives. And I guess that's why I think it's an important subject to talk about, because if we can help people get more focused on the positives and avoid the negatives, that's got to be a good thing, hasn't it?
Well, what are the negatives then, mate? Because I'm not sure I see it.
So some of the negatives, I think it can slow things down because, I think when people think that they have to all collaborate together, they mistake it for everyone has to have a say. People mistake collaborating to come up with an answer with everyone has to agree. Everyone has to have a say. And so I think when done like that, where everyone has to have a say, and often people who don't really know a lot about the subject have to have a say, I think in organisations when they do that, it slows things down. So
that's interesting. There's consensus there, isn't it? Yeah. And so if collaboration is about consensus, then I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure it is.
No, but it often does. That's the point, James.
Oh, man, okay.
These things get confused. And so consensus, being unanimous, involving everyone, engaging everyone, all of these things get mashed together, badged as collaboration, and then all of a sudden it creates work. Everyone's got to have a say. Everyone's got to know everything. So I do think that that's one side of collaboration that doesn't.
There's an old Hindu proverb.
Wow.
I like this. It's probably not Hindu at all. It probably
I know,
comes
I
from
really like
Birmingham,
it,
but,
James.
all right, old Hindu proverb, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
So, I totally get it. Yeah.
And I think what you're describing, Jimmy, is an intention to collaborate, but actually collaboration done wrong.
Yeah.
So the first premise being is, when is collaboration a bad thing? Actually, we're probably struggling to think of it being a bad thing per se. Collaboration done wrong creates all kinds of unintended or bad consequences.
On a principle level, why wouldn't you want to do it? You're going to work with people. It's a fact of working life. To James's Hindu proverb, we want to go far. It's a good thing. But I guess my point is, in execution, I've seen many, many organizations do it badly. And therefore, the side effect of collaboration is not a positive one. It's not that the subject in principle is a bad thing. It's the execution that lots of organizations, partly because, and we've touched on this a few times, is they jump on the bandwagon because it's a good thing and it's a corporate buzzword, but they don't really follow through. It was like I had that conversation recently about well-being. Every organization thinks they should look after the well-being of their employees, but how much actual effort do they really put behind their well-being practices? I think the same could apply to collaboration.
Yeah, but the opposite. Well, I suppose here's a question for you. What is the opposite of collaboration? And I would say, well, competition is probably the opposite of collaboration. And I was listening to a podcast this morning, and it was a quote from Mark Carney. I think he used to be the governor of the Bank of England.
He was.
He's running to be the Prime Minister of Canada or something like that. And he, given Mr. Trump's current behaviour, he has said, we are no longer your allies to the north. We are now just your neighbours. And you think to yourself, well, bloody hell, what is that going to do for the economy? So I think, competition and driving barriers is really a very, very bad thing. Yeah. So it really is. I don't think this is something that is really negotiable. I think it is done badly quite often, but it shouldn't be negotiable, certainly not within an organisation.
No, I agree. And I think whatever level you are in an organisation, you want to foster collaboration in the right way. But, this is, I think, why it's important to talk about the subject is because so often it is not done in the right way and it has negative consequences as a result of not being done properly. It's not that collaboration as a subject is wrong. So, Amanda, help us understand more about how do we achieve the benefits of collaboration and what are the benefits of collaboration?
Yeah, well, I think first of all is understanding actually what's the benefit? What are you actually going to get out of developing this collaborative effort? Some of the things that spring to my mind, I'd love to know your thoughts on this too. Actually, for lots of people, a great degree of satisfaction and motivation. So from an engagement perspective, coming together as a team, identifying a shared objective and working together on that can be highly satisfying, highly motivating. You talked about something earlier around it can be slow, done wrong, but actually done well, collaboration can lead to really fast and effective problem solving. You've got a group of people with some different perspectives on the same problem, actually with the right setup and structure around that, going at pace. So you're increasing satisfaction in your organisation, you're delivering faster on problem solving. Different ways, by bringing different perspectives, different people together, you can create innovative solutions, things you might not have thought of on your own or in your own work stream or functional stream, but actually by working with other people who bring a slightly different lens, opens up the opportunities for kind of innovation and creativity. Are just some of the things that occur to me.
The show you're listening to right now brings you insights to help you improve performance and enjoyment of work.
It takes a long time to produce, but we think it's well worth it. It's all in the name of helping you getting the job done well.
All we ask in return is that you share the link to this show with someone that you think would benefit from it. And if you haven't already, click on follow the show wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. Anyway, let's get back to the show. If you do it and embrace it in the right way, I think it can add you huge amounts of value and get you much better results. A good example of that, when I joined a particular organisation, they wanted to become more digital, like lots of organisations, and they had spent many millions of pounds on this project. And the project had involved a load of technical people sitting in a room building stuff.
Right.
So as a result, it hadn't got anywhere. Great technical solutions, but no value to the end customer. So the team that were working for me, what they did is they got the technical guys together with the operational guys and also the end customer who were going to use this system. And the three groups worked together on what was going to be a solution that was going to mean that the customers could use it, the users could use it, and it could be technically delivered. And in a relatively short period of time, with a relatively small amount of money, they built a solution that ended up over 95% of customers submitted all of their claims by this new system. And that was down to the fact that all of the groups involved in the ongoing use of the system collaborated effectively together.
Yeah. Wow. I love that, because that's a big, impactful organisational project as well, no doubt, and one that over time would take quite some time to deliver. But actually, you've probably increased the impact of the product and probably speed to market too by that effective collaboration. And actually, sometimes it can occur. We don't always encourage this, or we neglect to encourage it. But even in smaller teams, I mean, we were joking at the beginning of this podcast, but your podcast series now, where you're inviting guests, is an example of a collaboration, right? You have, I realise, are deeply wise and experienced in many things, and from
most things, Amanda, most things.
In most things, I apologise for that. And from time to time, you'll invite guests who may have similar perspective or slightly different perspective. So your product gets enriched by the introduction of kind of some new thinking or maybe some new expertise. A project that I'm working on at the moment with a group of amazing ladies who've actually dubbed themselves Amanda's Angels, which I thought was lovely, but actually came together, needed to deliver this piece of training and communication quite quickly. But what's been lovely about that is actually a group of people coming together, shared goal, very clear what the goal is and very clear what the timeline is, and actually the boundaries and scope of work. So now I'm getting into the territory of what's important, but actually have been really kind of willing to share the workload, dip in and dip out, kind and generous towards each other. This isn't my piece, so stay well away from it. It's, if you can make this better, then build it. And actually what's happened is that in that small way, delivery of a relatively contained piece of work, the speed to market, the time in which that's been delivered has been remarkably quick. And the energy and engagement around that piece of work has been kind of high and rewarding and satisfying for everyone that's part of it. So it applies to small projects, but certainly what you were describing, Jimmy, in terms of organisational context, those bigger projects, being thoughtful about how you set that up, really, really important. But then what can be achieved is, well, way beyond that, which one group alone would manage, I'm fairly sure.
And I think you touched on a really important point there, which is, having a shared goal, having a shared outcome that you're trying to do together. Because again, back to my being a slight naysayer on this, when I've seen it done badly, it's because people have slightly different goals. So in a project, you get the finance team who are interested in delivering the project on budget. You get the project managers who just want to deliver it on time, and you get the end users that just want an all singing, all dancing thing. And it's the fact that you haven't created a unifying shared goal and shared effort, shared work to get there. That often is where collaboration can break down.
Yeah, okay. But then, so here's my question. What does effective collaboration look like? What are the characteristics, the behaviors? What do you need for collaboration to happen? So shared goal, one thing. What else?
Well, I would say a huge amount of trust and psychological safety. So laying the foundations for how we will work together what this looks like, actually agreeing almost what it looks like, how we want this experience to be together before you even get into the work itself. And then really investing in trusting relationships so that there's no misunderstanding about your intention or your real agenda. We're actually kind of building that relationship capacity to be able to collaborate.
Yeah. Anything else?
I'm on a roll on this. I love this kind of work, and I love working with teams to kind of develop the capacity for this too. So what other things? Getting really good at delegating. So if you're the manager, you're the owner of this piece of work, ultimately, making sure that you've set the boundaries and the scope of the work and clear about the outcome. Get out of the way then and allow the team to do the work. So avoid this kind of helicopter management where I come in every now and again and then tell you how I want you to do it. And then I leave and the team are just kind of disrupted. Actually, set the boundaries, have your reporting structure in terms of information, but then get out of the way of them doing the work. Mentioned this already, decision-making framework. Who really owns this decision? So if we're doing the work, we're designing something, we're designing a new tech system, actually who is signing off on what the features of that actually look like? Being clear about that up front so that the collaboration can work within that framework, and then there's no misunderstandings around that as we get really deeply into the work.
Sounds, Amanda, it sounds an opportunity for a RACI matrix.
Yeah, you perhaps ought to explain a little bit more about what RACI matrix is.
For those of you who don't know, a RACI matrix is where in any piece of work or organisation or team or project, you lay out those 4 things. R stands for responsible, so identifying who's responsible. A is who's accountable, ultimately the overall accountability for something. C is consulted, so who are you going to talk to about it? And I is informed. The person who's ultimately accountable has the overall decision-making authority in this. And it's also really useful to identify the difference between people who are consulted and informed. And consulted means that I'll talk to you about things and it's a two-way consultation, so I'll take your input, whereas informed is I'm just going to tell you that I'm doing things. And quite often people think that they should all be consulted, and that's back to my examples of that can slow things down, versus actually I only need to tell these people about something. So up front, defining those four groups and being clear to people, that definitely is one of the things that helps collaboration, I think.
Well, and at the risk of getting all geopolitical again, because I think it's really important, but the whole conversation at the moment about peace in Ukraine and the negotiation where they're not including the Ukrainians is fundamentally against your RACI matrix. You've just done a hiding to nothing.
And that's the point about agreeing up front who's doing what, who's saying what, who's involved. And that's what they're doing at the moment. And everyone wants to be in the heart of it, but actually defining before you get into the content of what the agreements are, just being clear about who has a say in what is crucial.
Set it up front. 100% comes in that contracting phase for me, right at the beginning. Everyone's clear. Defining clear goals and roles. I think something about establishing communication protocol as well. Like, who are we going to talk to and when are we going to and how are we going to update each other as well? So the more clarity and transparency of information and information exchange that you can establish and then build into your structure, the better. And then something that I think is super important but often overlooked, celebrating the success. So there might be some small moments and some small wins towards that bigger goal, or anyway, celebrating the successes along the way, not just at the very end, I think is really important, so that the group can feel and experience and have recognized the value that they're creating by their collaboration efforts, because it takes a lot.
On that point, Amanda, about celebrating success on the journey, that was one of the big learnings I had on my career, because I was always celebrate at the end when you've achieved the end goal, and actually I realized that actually celebrating the smaller milestones creates a much more enjoyable work environment for people.
Yep.
And B, it really helps accelerate progress.
Yep.
If you just pause for a moment and enjoy the fact that you've made progress. If you're aiming to only celebrate when you achieve perfection, you'll never be celebrating.
Yeah.
And that's a hard environment for people to work in.
Really hard, because the next thing comes along, the next iteration. The other part of that as well, if you're a leader, if you see people really kind of trusting each other, leaning on one another's expertise, building and creating ideas, celebrating that effort and that behavior, commenting on that too, will likely, one, sets a model for people about what's expected. That's important, right? And clarity, but also encourages more of that behavior. So the work and the small wins, as well as the big wins, and recognizing those collaborative efforts. And that sometimes leads to that old chestnut. So if you've got a performance management system which is about rewarding individuals, how does that reside with encouraging collaboration? Because if we look on the kind of other side, what gets in the way, then one of the things is, if I'm collaborating on this piece of work, it takes me away from over there, my legal role. In my legal function, where my performance is appraised, where I'm compared around people doing similar things, feels like a priority. I'll give that more.
Is there anything else that really supports collaboration, do you think?
One of the things that has become more and more present these days is collaboration tools. So the ability to be able to not be in the same room, but be in the same room, just as in the same way that we are right now. So across time zones, by using technology, is also super cool. And be able, something now as simple as being able to be working in the same document, for example, and kind of building information structures together, is something that I gather people do.
So James and I have a shared drive that we put all our information and the stuff that we're working on together, and we can both access that whether we're together or not. So I think that and that works really well, because it takes some of the sending things backwards and forwards. But just to pick up on something you said earlier, Amanda, you were talking about the importance of building relationships within a collaborative environment. Does that include in there actually building an understanding of the skills and capabilities of people have? Because I think that's, as well as building the trust in terms of the relationship, me building an understanding of what you are capable of and what you're good at and what you're not good at.
Yeah.
That also helps, good effective collaboration, because, James knows what I'm going to struggle with and vice versa. And therefore we know when we can lean on each other and actually when we should take the lead on things.
100%. What skills do we have available to us?
Yeah.
What can we draw on? What can we count on you for? I think it's really, really important. I think another dimension too is actually understanding within this collaborative effort, is there something I would like to work on? So is there a development angle to collaborating?
Yeah.
So the benefit of being able to draw on existing skills, but also to develop new skills that become available through that collaborative effort.
Just to build on Amanda, I think being clear on what's in it for me, whether it's a development point of view or a learning, or whether it's a sense of achievement, whether it's reward, whether it's career advancement, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think collaboration tends to be thought of as a group thing. So we as a team, we as a unit, we as a project team are going to collaborate. But I think sometimes what gets missed out is the what's in it for me as individuals. And if you can be clear about what's in it for me, why am I doing this? I think I like a lot of things, not just collaboration. Being clear on that really helps kind of drive and motivate people.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'd pile in there with a couple of other points and links. And I think the one is, we can talk about tools and everything, and I'm absolutely with you. They make collaboration easy, but actually, are people prepared to bury their ego? Because if people aren't prepared to bury their ego, then that will always get in the way. But then that leads to, why would I bury my ego? Well, it comes down to what's in it for me. And it comes back to our old friend purpose, I think, which is, if you haven't got a really strong purpose that everybody lines up and agrees with, then you're kind of on a hiding to nothing. And that needs to be better than just a strong goal.
Within that, James, it's have you got that purpose? But the key thing there as well is have you got the people bought into that purpose?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then what's in it for me is that we are going to achieve the purpose that means something to me personally.
Yes.
And that, in a lot of occasions, that can be enough for a lot of people that they feel they have made a contribution towards a successful delivery of a goal, a purpose, whatever it is. But that's got to mean something to them. If it doesn't, just because you as a senior person have said this is important to do, if it doesn't mean something to them, they're not going to get the what's in it.
No, absolutely. I've seen so many organisations say, our goal is to drive profits to X% or this many million or whatever the hell it might be. And frankly, the people on the shop floor do not give a stuff. So let's not be too surprised if they're not collaborating to support.
So just going back a stage, so we said that collaboration is hugely important, but you've got to do it. Why wouldn't you? We're always working on shared out goals. And then we've described what good collaboration looks like. So if it's obvious and we've just said how you do it, why don't organisations do it all the time?
Can I pile in again? As one of my favourite quotes, there is more competition within organisations than between them, and it's usually less ethical.
Yeah.
Which I think it just shows that it is endemic within organisations.
So that old chestnut, that thing that comes up so many times, is your reward system set up to celebrate and reward collaborative effort, or actually does it set up individual performance and reward individual performance? And that so often gets in the way.
Reward systems, what else?
Another thing that gets in the way, it's my professional identity. So if I identify that I am a lawyer or I am a software engineer, and I come to the party in that kind of frame, that's my professional identity that I'm bringing. If I don't feel like that's being satisfied or developed in some way, then actually it can all start to kind of break down, because this isn't a project that I contribute to or get anything from.
I think it's really important. So the personal identity. And so when I have seen conflict in organisations, that conflict is invariably between different departments.
Yeah.
And actually within departments, people tend to cooperate quite well and they work together. But you've got a couple of things going on. One is, I think, just the constant focus on efficiency of the departments, which doesn't help. Yeah, your point about we haven't got a shared goal, we've got different goals. And then the other thing is just size as well. So it's the Scottish thing, isn't it? Clans get up to about 100 people and then they start to bud off. But actually, there comes a point where you don't know all these people, so you will tend to collaborate with the people that you know, and those people will be the people within your departments. So identity, really important, and size, I think.
Yeah, and I think another one is fundamentally how you're structured. So not so much just the rewards, but to your point, James, is a bit about, whose team are you in and stuff like that. I mean, I was brought into one organisation where they had a transformation that had gone horribly wrong and was causing so much problems to the organisation. And they brought me in, and all the teams that had supposedly collaborated on this failed transformation, they all had different reporting lines previously. And what they did is they brought me in and gave them all to me. So it became one person's problem. And then they were all around my table and they had to collaborate because previously they were around different tables. So I think just your organisational structure can either help or hinder collaboration depending on how you structure yourselves.
Just one more thing. It's not just about collaboration within an organisation. A wise man once said to me, organisations don't compete, supply chains compete. So it's about you and your suppliers, and are you collaborating with your suppliers? I worked for one organisation, and I was responsible for the supplier there. And the previous incumbent of the job said to me, it's quite easy to manage this supplier. All you have to do is just make sure you keep your foot on their neck. If that's the way you treat your suppliers, do not be surprised if you've got a second-rate organisation.
And I think that's a great point, James, because that is often missed. I collaborate with the people around my table, and my suppliers are just here to do a transactional job for me, when actually thinking about who are all the people, regardless of team, regardless of organisation, I need to collaborate with in order to achieve my goal.
Yeah.
Thinking that way would unlock a lot of improvement.
So go on then. In summary then, how would we pull that together?
So in summary, I think the overall concept of collaboration, and this is the reason for talking about this today, is it's vital to organisation success, but only when it's done well.
And I think to do it well, you need to invest in setting up the environment for collaboration and the ways of collaborating deliberately and intentionally, and revisit them through your collaboration effort. So right at the beginning, clarity of goals and roles, making sure that you've created mutual, respectful and trusting relationships, celebrating the work and the behavioural milestones along the way, but all very intentionally.
And then the other thing I think is it's not enough to do a lot of work to focus on what you need to do better. It's really important as well. You look at the reasons why you haven't got collaboration in your organisation.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed collaborating with you today around this podcast.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Amanda. It's been fantastic to have you on again.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Cheers now. Speak to you later. We cover a whole host of topics on this podcast,
From purpose to corporate jargon.
but always focused on one thing: getting the job done well.
Easier said than done. So if you've got unhappy customers or employees, bosses or regulators breathing down your neck,
If your backlogs are out of control and your costs are spiralling, and that big IT transformation project that you've been promised just keeps failing to deliver,
we can help. If you need to improve your performance, your team's performance, or your organisation's, get in touch at jimmy@ajobdonewell.com.
or James@jobdonewell.com.